Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Paul Perdue, and I am a nerd, and you are attending the January 2014 Tabs3 Virtual User Group meeting, our first virtual user group meeting of the new year. And I remembered to say 2014, so I'm very proud of myself. We'll begin in a minute, and we will talk about, Mary Jo will talk about, I should say, the new journal entry screen in General Ledger, how it's changed. We'll issue our challenge that if you can get a journal entry to be out of balance now, we will do something exciting. We just don't know what that is yet. And I will talk about the new split fee billing functionality within version 17. The new split billing functionality. One of the things that's changed is the rename. But first, a little housekeeping. This that you are looking at now is our control panel for GoToWebinar. If you are still seeing something that looks like this, then you have not clicked this button here, which looks like an arrow pointing to the right. And when you click that button there, this big thing will slide out of the way. This button then will turn into a button where the arrow points to the left. Clicking it again will cause this to slide back into view. You would do that if you're wanting to ask a question, but you're feeling a little bit shy. You could type your question here, remembering, of course, to hit the send button. Leanne, our humble but capable moderator, will interrupt us at the appropriate time and ask your question on your behalf. If instead you are not feeling shy and you have a question to ask, click this button that looks like a hand with an arrow pointing upwards in front of it. That means raise your hand. And clicking that will also bring you to the attention of Leanne, but this time instead of asking your question on your behalf, she will simply unmute you after she's interrupted Mary Jo or myself, and she will let you ask your own question. Now, whether you're talking live or you're typing your question, as we are answering it, if you have follow-up questions, just keep asking them or just keep typing them, remembering, of course, that if you're typing them, that you need to also hit this send button. And Leanne will continue to make sure that your question gets answered until we're done answering it. So, without any further ado, we will switch over to the General Ledger screen, and Mary Jo will tell you all about that brand new journal entry screen. Mary Jo?
I will, but I think, Paul, that you need to give me some keyboard and mouse. I cannot move.
You have to say it that way, as if I'm known for not giving you keyboard and mouse.
Well, it could be, but
now,
you have that. I will open the window.
I'm going to choose one of these attorney computer systems. Wiggle your mouse now, Mary Jo.
There we go. I'm alive. Okay, so here is the much anticipated and awaited journal entry window. Does look much different than what you're used to seeing. So let's start at the beginning. When we get into this window, we have to make a manual journal entry. This is going to be for any automatic deductions that come out of your checking account, either via EFT from your bank or a transfer, automatic payments, payroll. Another big one that you have to actually sometimes make manual journal entries to get those in. This is what we're talking about in this journal window. So first of all, we have our transaction number, and this is the old, I guess what you'd call the batch number. So if we hit our tab, that's going to go ahead and assign that number. I guess that's wrong. That would have been the old record number, not the batch number. I apologize. So record number is here. You put in the date of your entry, and as always, we're going to choose our one side. So I start with my bank account. And let's say that we're doing rent. So I'm going to credit the bank account for, let's say $1,000 for our rent. And when I hit my tab key, I can put in a description, just like we always could. We have a type here. This used to be on a block over here. So this is going to be, is it cash, check, client funds, EFT? So I'll just say this is an EFT. It's automatically coming out of the account. If it were a check, this is where you'd put your check number. Here's where you would choose your journal. So if you use multiple journals for receipt, disbursements, payroll things, it's still there to choose. And then a reference number. And if this were an entry coming in from tabs, this would be where that client ID and matter number would have been. And then this little R is the reconciled status. So if I just click on that box, I can see that this is still an outstanding or reconciled, or if it's cleared. This is where that would happen after you've done your reconciliation, this would come in and check that side as reconciled, and if it has already cleared the bank. So that's where that is. So now I'm going to come back down to my second line, and look, oh my gosh, it's already put in my $1,000 because it knows I still have $1,000 to disperse on my debit side. But let's say that I don't want just this $1,000. I want to give part of this for office lease. Maybe I've got some of this as a rental, and I rent some equipment from them, and I pay that in the same check or automatic withdrawal. So I'm going to make this part $900, and it already knows it's my debit side. I'm going to go ahead and hit my tab key, go across and choose all of my information. And when I get here, it automatically knows again I still have $100 left to disperse. So now I'm going to put that remaining $100 to office lease, office equipment lease, and there we have it. I've got my whole entry in. It is imbalanced. It wouldn't let me do anything else until I distributed all that money. If this were an equal $1,000 and $1,000, I could have put that in and been done, but that is there. The batch screen, I'm going to save it first. The batch screen just is the old area where you used to be able to see all the groupings. If you had come out of an entry and you came back in to modify that entry and you wanted to add additional lines in version 16 or prior, you would have had to know what that batch number was so that you could tie it to the entry and make sure that you're balanced. If you had to make some modifications to amounts and things like that, you don't have to do that anymore. It automatically knows what the batch number is when I get back into this journal entry. So if I had to make a modification, and maybe this had to be $800, it already knows if I click down here that I still have an additional $100. Maybe I needed to disperse that to something else, or maybe I needed to change this to $200. Whatever that is, I don't have to worry about a batch number to tie it. It's automatically here, and it won't even let me go anywhere else but this entry. So that eliminates those unbalanced entries that we would have. You would have this one little floating entry out there that didn't tie to anything, but then another entry was unbalanced because it had the other portion of it. The other thing that it does is it only has one date field here. I don't have to put a date in every single time I'm doing each side of the entry like we used to have to do. And that eliminates entries being posted in different months, different years, things like that that used to happen and throw off our trial balance figures. So they've really done a great job of bringing the screen together and really making it hard to have an unbalanced entry. In fact, I'm going to go there. I'm going to say that it's impossible, but as Paul said, we have that challenge out there. So if you can find a way.
Right now, what, Mary Jo, should we give them if somebody can unbalance a journal entry?
Oh, I don't know. I have no idea. That'll be you, Paul.
Krispy Kreme donuts. We'll have to come up with something. But that's our challenge.
Chocolate is always good. I mean, chocolate is
good. Okay, maybe one of those huge Hershey bars that you can get at the Hershey store that weighs like 2 pounds. Let's do that, a 2-pound Hershey bar. We will give a 2-pound Hershey bar to the first person, and I have to say that because if somebody finds a way, then there will be more than one person. The first person that can find a way to unbalance a journal entry.
That sounds good.
In version 16, Mary Jo, is that when it changed? They fixed it so it was very hard to enter an unbalanced journal entry. But you could still call one up and get it all out of whack if you went in and edited it.
Yeah, but that was the other thing in version 16. You would bring up a journal entry to modify it, and then you would correct it, and your journal entry was in balance. But then you would go to get out, and it would tell you that the session totals didn't balance. Even though the journal entry balanced, your particular session where you just logged in for today to do this change did not, because you just made half of a change. Even though you balanced the entry and it's all correct and everything is good, it wouldn't let you out. And so that was a very frustrating thing that a lot of our clients would get to. And how do I get out of here? How do I get out of here? I can't exit. I'm stuck. Well, that's gone too. You won't be able to get out so this is balanced. But once this is balanced, there is no session totals or any of that. It's looking at the entry as a whole, which it should. So this is really big. I think as you get in and you start to use it, you will find that it's much, much more user-friendly.
It's also a little bit scary. I say scary right after you say user-friendly, but everybody that I put this on, updated them to version 17, usually before I leave the office. Whoever does the journal entries will hunt me down and say, what did you do to my journal entry screen? But once they get into it and they see what it's doing, yes, it's different. It had to be made different in order to be made this way. But yes, it's different, but at the same time, it usually once they've done an entry or two, they like it. So,
are there any questions, Leanne?
She's rushing.
No questions. Well, if as you
we did have a comment. We had a comment of how much this has improved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
once you get into it, you start to have some questions, always feel free to call. I mean, I'd be glad to walk you through it, and we'll see what's going on. But yeah, it's much better.
Yep, I agree. Well, on to split fee billing then. That's what I'm going to talk about, and I did it again. I called it split fee billing. It's not called split fee billing anymore. It's called split billing. That's one of the changes they've made. This is one of the most requested things, at least by certain resellers that have clients that do a lot of split fee billing. I think what happens is people tried it years ago and it didn't do what they needed to do, and so they just stopped using it and they started doing it manually, meaning they would get the fee entries for a certain case or matter that was being paid for by or split among two or more different parties, and they would just manually split them because in the past there were some problems. One was that there was no way to undo a split, and now, and I have to go, and I don't even know where this is. Mary Jo, do you know where the undo split is? Oh, she's taking me back. She's taking control. One of the things is that now you can undo a split. Now, a little bit of background. You have a case. Somebody needs to have a matter paid for by multiple parties. It's kind of common in insurance defense, but I see it in other areas. One of our clients is a little 3-attorney firm in the middle of Ohio in a town that has not even a blinking stoplight, just a stop sign. And they are one of the country's or the country's leading dairy law firms. Small firm, but a very specialized area. They do split billing all day long. They'll have 3 different major dairy farms in Wisconsin hire them to push a certain piece of legislation through, and they need to split that bill for the time that they spend among those 3 clients. So the theory is you enter your time as you normally would against some matter, one of the 3, and at the end of the month, maybe you review the bill as a whole, maybe you split it first, but you press a button and it splits it according to how it's been told to split it, and you send your bills. So the biggest problem that was overcome with version 17 is now we have the ability to undo split billing, which simply means that once we split it, we can put it back together again, make changes, split it again. It's just like undoing an updated statement. A long, long time ago, when you printed a final bill and updated it, you could never unupdate it. That changed, as I said, a long time ago. This is the same thing. It used to be in version 16.2 and prior that when you split a split fee case, you couldn't bring it back together. Now you can. So that in and of itself is huge. Let's go look at some of these things. I think one of these clients, Purdue versus Walmart, is set up as a split fee billing client. Now I'm in the client manager, and I'm going there to get through to the client screen. I could just as easily have gone straight to the client screen. So I'll go back out and do it that way. Here it is, split billing. Now I'm going to pull up this case again, this Michael Larson's Purdue versus Walmart. And here's where you take one of the matters and define how it's going to be split among the other matters. Now, in this particular example, we have a .00 matter that is then being split into two, .01 and .02. I don't know if this changed in version 17. It may have been this way before, but you can now have the matter that you're putting the time on, which would be the .00 matter, also be incorporated in the split. So if that were the case, we would simply have .00 being split amongst itself and another matter. Hopefully that makes sense. Here you see this matter being only for holding the time before it gets split among 0.01 and 0.02. If you prefer, you could have 0.00 splitting amongst itself and 0.01, and then you wouldn't need the 0.02. Some people prefer to do it this way, meaning that they have a place to put the time, but then it splits out of there into two or three or four or five totally separate matters, so that then the repository for the time is now again back to zero, ready for people to put more time in. That's a matter of personal preference. So one of the big things that they've done here, it used to split the hours and the amount at the same time, and that was the only way to do it. So if you had two clients that were splitting a 40-60 split, that's what this means. The REM means remainder. So 40% of the fees, 40% of the expenses, and 40% of the advances are going to this client, and the remainder, which we happen to know to be 60% of both of fees, expenses, and advances, is going to this client. It used to simply take the hours and the amount that were calculated and split them. So if somebody logged 1 hour at $250 an hour, calculating an amount of $250, it would split it, in this example, $100 and 0.4 hours going here, and $150 and 0.6 hours going here. This new feature allows us to have different clients splitting transactions, splitting matters at different rates. So here, if we choose split hours and then calculate amount, we could have an hour which is going to be billed at $200 an hour for one person and $100 an hour for another person. So when that hour gets split, 0.4 hours will go to this guy, and maybe he's the $100 an hour guy, and so he'll pay $40. 0.6 hours will go to this guy, and he's the $200 an hour guy, so he'll pay $120. Hopefully that makes sense. It's a little hard to explain, but this merely splits both the hours and the amount, and this splits the hours and then calculates the amount. In the past, it was impossible to have split billing work if you had different rates for different clients, different parties in the split. Now the same, of course, then is true over here, splitting units and then calculating an amount. Perhaps you have one client that's paying for half of a insurance defense case and another client that's paying for the other half, but this client's willing to pay 25 cents for a black and white copy, and this client's only willing to pay 10 cents for a black and white copy. Then splitting it here with 100 copies, one client would pay $12.50, and the other client would pay $5, because one's paying 10 cents per copy and the other's paying 25 cents per copy. Same sort of concept, only here we're doing the units as opposed to the hours. We did not used to be able to split credits, and we did not used to be able to split non-billable and zero amount fees or costs. Those can now be split. So that's another enhancement that they've added all of these, mainly because people wanted to be able to issue credits and split them, and mainly because people had non-billable information that they still wanted to show up on the resultant bill. Now, another thing that they've done, and I'm simply going to take you out to the What's New list to show you this, and I'm going to zero in on it here. Hopefully I'm going to, well, maybe I can't do that from here. This is an example of how we can now show the splits. In the past, when it was split, it was split. So if you split an hour 50-50 at, let's just for the sake of discussion say each client paying $200 an hour, one client would see 0.5 hours at $100 total, and the other client would see 0.5 hours at $100 total. They never saw what it was like before it was split. There are now several different ways to show that split to the client so they can see, oh, look, here's my share, and look, here's how much the other guy's paying. So here's an example of that. This is a split billing summary that shows one person paying this much fees, expenses, advances in total, and the other paying that much, and then this is how much the total bill is. So when we're back here at the split definition, we have the ability to define how that's going to show, and that, I believe, is on one of the other screens. But we have the ability now to show each side what the other side is paying in their share, in addition to what the person that's reviewing their own bill is paying as their share. And that can be defined differently on either side. So one person can be set so that they can see the other split, and the other person can be set so they can't see the other split. Obviously, if you have different people splitting hours, but then each has a different rate, you don't want to show this. Maybe the one that is paying the lower rate knows that the other guy's paying a higher rate, so he can see it, but the one that's paying the higher rate, probably you don't want them to see that the other guy's paying a lower rate, so you don't want to show it on both sides. So you can show this summary information in a variety of different formats on both sides, or on one side or the other side. That, in a nutshell, is split billing, which used to be called split fee billing. Major enhancements, the ability to split hours, split units, and then calculate, so people can have different rates or different amounts that they're willing to pay for mileage or photocopies or things like that. The ability to undo, the ability to show the summary information that allows people to see how the splits break down without having to print that bill before it gets split. Are there any questions, Leanne?
No, there are no questions, Paul.
Awesome. Well, there we have it. The new journal entry screen in version 17 and the new split billing feature also in version 17. If anyone out there has tried split billing before and decided it didn't work for them, I'd urge you to take a look at it again. It's solved most, if not all, of the problems that you may have encountered before. And of course, don't forget about the journal entry challenge. If you can find a way to get a journal entry out of balance in version 17, we will give you, if you're the first person to discover a way, a 2-pound Hershey bar, and you will not have to share that. Next month, we're going to talk about, wrong list. Next month, we're going to talk about the new update functionality. There's new functionality built into version 17 where you don't have to go out and look at the update website and then compare your date to the date of the programs on file. You just click a button and it goes out and checks for updates, and then the way that's installed is enhanced. Much easier to check, much easier for STI to tell you automatically if there's a critical update, much easier for you to do the actual update yourself once you've checked and found that there is one to do. And we're also going to talk about pre-bill tracking. This isn't something that's changed in version 17, but we haven't talked about it in a long time. And there are people out there that have been using the software for a long time and don't know about the pre-bill tracker, or maybe they got it from somebody else, because I know Mary Jo, when she trains somebody, she's always showing this pre-bill tracker. We're going to go over that and show you how you can get a very tight grip on your monthly billing cycle by using the pre-bill tracker. So until then, everybody have a good month. Welcome to 2014. Have a good afternoon, and we will talk to you in a month. By the way, the PM Virtual User Group meeting is in, Practice Master Virtual User Group meeting is in a few minutes at 2 o'clock, so stick around for that. Otherwise, we'll see you next month. Thanks much. Bye-bye.